I think we're live.
Okay, we are now going live on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, we are live on YouTube now. If you'll just give me just 1 second. 1 second.
No problem.
You can hold that if
What did I cover with them? What did I cover with them?
Which cover? Stop that nigga, please. No place for this. Because when you're on TV,
Are we ready now?
yes, we are ready to go now, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. It's my pleasure to welcome you once again to Olumba Television tonight. I'm sure we are all conversant with the events of what is happening in Nigeria at the moment, the End SARS protest. And now, recently, yesterday, it took a new dimension. And this morning, a turn for the wars, with burning and looting going on in Port Harcourt, Aba in Abia State, Lagos, and in some places in Abuja. We have our guest tonight, Mr. Ahmad Sajo, was the former Commissioner for Information in Adamawa State, with us tonight to give us his perspective on the events of what is happening in Nigeria. So, Mr. Sajo, please, what do you think about the NSAS protest going on in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for having me. Since this is an international audience, it's important that we put it in proper perspective. I guess that what we're doing or what we're witnessing is actually rather very, very unfortunate, and it's avoidable, and it's very dangerous for the survival of our country as a nation, and it's not in our interest. It's not in anybody's interest. What is happening now is that it was a peaceful protest, a protest that was highly commendable, but it was allowed to linger for too long. And first, it was infiltrated by people whose agenda is totally different from the agenda of the original conveners of the protest. And then secondly, of course, there's always a fatigue. When something lingers beyond the ordinary requirement, the fatigue will set in, and other things will come in and overtake what was originally intended. I think it's unfortunate. And when it started, it was peaceful. It was like young people wanted to make their voices heard, and their voices were heard. And to a large extent, government took those voices very seriously. Action was being taken, but then it lingered on beyond 10 days, and other things came in, the looting, the burning, the supposed shooting, which is disputed somehow by some other segments of the authorities, and then the divisions that are being created, typical of the Nigerian political elite with their pedestrian thinking. They are changing the narrative gradually, making it a North versus South or a South versus North kind of thing. They're making it a Muslim versus Christian kind of thing. These are all products of pedestrian thinking, the products of a backward political system. And with all of these things, if care is not taken, the original reason for the protest started would have been lost in all of these things that are happening now, particularly the looting, the burning, the arson, the attacks and counterattacks on each other. I think these are things that should not have happened, should be condemned by every right-thinking person. The original reason for which the protest took place is still as valid as when the thing started, that no free citizen in any country should be harassed by those that are paid by his own taxpayers' money to protect him. This is fundamental, and we should not lose it. But when it is infiltrated by other people and the thing takes the dimension of region, religion, and antagonisms along our known fault lines, I think that is unacceptable and is very bad.
We thank you very much. My question at this point will be, in your opinion, do you think that this protest is just about police brutality, or is it as a result of pent-up anger and frustration of the masses with the political class?
Well, when it started, every conflict in the world has its own trigger points. When it started, the real trigger point for this protest, whether we like it or not, is police brutality. And police brutality targeted at young people mainly in the southern part of the country. A lot of people must understand one thing, that, for example, SARS in Borno had no business with any young man calling him a Yahoo boy or anything. SARS in Borno is essentially helping the citizens, the military, the JTF to confront Boko Haram. So Borno person does not even understand that SARS brutalizes innocent people as far as he is concerned. But in the southern part of the country, where we have a highly upwardly mobile young men and women, SARS became a means to torment younger people and begin to label them by their dressing, by their outlook, by their flashy cars or flashy phones, or if they're holding a laptop. SARS did all of that. There's no doubt about it. Nobody should wish it away. So it became the trigger for so many other things that have happened in the polity over the years that have been neglected by the political class. The political class had become so comfortable with the system that they are operating that they seem to have forgotten completely that other people are watching. If you see sometimes the scandalous display of wealth by the political class at gatherings and ceremonies that involves them, and the ordinary people who are finding it very difficult to eat will look at these things, and you think it does not build up anger in them. I think it's not fair. So I'm sure that there are other underlying, class difference, social agitations that were being buried deep down. And the protest against the SARS brutalizing young people became just a trigger of a much deeper occurrence within the polity. And I think we need to take that very seriously and begin to reconfigure and look at our social relationships. I think the gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening. And I think the insensitivity of those that are propertied in the country is becoming more and more scandalous. The poverty levels are getting worse. And this has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a report in circulation that predicted that there will be this kind of uprising in certain countries, and that includes Nigeria. This is very clear. Everybody knows. So at this point in time, what the political class, what the leadership class needed to have done was to begin to be more humane, more sympathetic, more empathetic, and our tone should be to pacify the masses to understand that things are really hard for everybody, including government. But when you begin to address people as if all is well, and then suddenly some segments of the agencies of government that are specifically required to protect the people become their tormentors, I think you've already created a very fine recipe for the kind of things we are seeing. I think there are a lot of pent-up anger in very many areas, in our social relationship between persons to persons, relationship between regions to region, relationship between community and community, relationship between religion, the different religious bodies that we practice, relationship in all aspects. There are gaps, and there are discontents, there are worries, there are disturbances. And I think we need to now sit down at the end of this process, and we pray that this process ends as soon as possible. We return to normalcy. We need to sit down and address all of these issues and discuss them openly, put them on table, and begin to find what everybody feels is wrong and how that wrong can be corrected.
Okay, thank you. And now, speaking about what the government should do you think the government has handled these EndSARS protests very well, both at the state and federal government level?
Let us aggregate it differently. At the state level, I must, to a very large extent, say the state governors, many of them, and I say it with all sense of responsibility, many of them have demonstrated leadership to a large extent. They were there, they came out, they braved the odds, they addressed the gathering. In fact, in some instances, they were molested and mobbed by the people, although details of some of these things are coming out very gradually. That's typical of the Nigerian politician. Politicians had also cashed in on it and things. But be that as it may, governors have demonstrated sufficient leadership. Most of the states, they have immediately constituted judicial panels and committees. Some of them have even visited victims in their homes. I think the governors have demonstrated leadership. But at the federal level, there are certain agencies of the government at the federal level that have not demonstrated leadership at all. And this we must say, because everybody, because a lot of the people who are operating at the federal level think that the masses and the media, focus all attention on the president, Muhammadu Buhari. They feel so comfortable not to perform their duties diligently because they know that they will not be accused, that the president will be accused. But I think a lot of the agencies could have done what they did differently. This is the 11th or 12th day of the protest. It's only today I saw a press release from the Minister of Police Affairs. This whole thing involves the police as the civilian head of the police outfit, or, as the representative of the president, representing the interests of the people that elected the president, be responsible for police affairs, I expected him to have, been in the forefront of addressing issues related to this protest from day one. It was only yesterday or day before yesterday that the Minister of Youth went and visited the president and came out and said, President said this, President said that. This is not the way to handle this. This is the time that people in leadership should have done what they are supposed to do. The Inspector General of Police should be commended for acting very swiftly, but he acted beyond, a reasonable level. If I were to advise, the Inspector General of Police would have announced the disbanding of SARS immediately and then announce a consultative process for an outfit that would have replaced SARS. Not to say we have disbanded SARS and we are establishing another, outfit. He is quite patriotic in doing that. His intentions are quite noble, but because of the timing and the manner in which the announcement is made, it created suspicion. So these are some of the gaps that some of us have noticed. Beyond that, what we know in the past, and that I'm above 60. So for crying out loud, I have been in Nigeria when Nigeria was different from what it is today. What used to happen is that when there is a crisis like this in the hands of government, government invites all voices of reason. Government interfaces with traditional rulers, government interfaces with religious leaders, government interfaces with media, government interfaces even with songwriters and singers to say, look, let us all use our voices to call for calm, to call for understanding, to engender the voice of reason to take over. Let us talk to people. But this is a case where it appears that one or two individuals, just decided that we will continue to run the system on trial and error. You inject this policy this morning. By the evening, if it fails, you start thinking of another policy tomorrow morning. And it lingered on and on and on. And I think we should begin to think differently. Let me lend my voice, my brother Daniel.
Yes.
Let me lend my voice to all the voices that have appealed to our respected President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. President Muhammadu Buhari is the father of the nation. He is beyond our leader, he's the father of the nation. That is God's arrangement at this point in time for our country. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he is the father of the nation. We expect that we're appealing that the president, as father of the nation, should address these youth as their father, talk to them, not just as the president, but as a father of everybody that is involved. He should also come out and say, if there are bloods that have been spilled, it's regrettable, and that is, we do not accept it. He should come out, pacify these young people, tell them that, look, there is no battle between government and citizens. There is no winner, no loser. The only people that will win, if eventually this crisis ends, is the Nigeria as a country. And he is the leader of that country. So if this country gains, he is the prime beneficiary of that process. So we are pleading with our president to come out, speak to us, speak to the young people, speak to our children, ask them to pull back and allow things to happen. Again, Dan, let me tell you, I have seen something that gives me a lot of hope in my country. For the first time in this country, I have seen military men, top military men, move to the scene, excuse me, to the scene of protest, speak in a civil manner to protesters. I am from the Northeast. We have suffered during the Boko Haram. there was a state of emergency imposed on our state. I know what happened. The military treated us as if they were an occupying army. They treated us as if we do not matter. They showed us that we were not respected by the military at that time. They would just put up a roadblock, and when you line up with many vehicles, they would just come out and come with a stick and begin to break windscreens without telling you why they were doing so. But here I am, seeing top military commanders go and stand in front of protesters, begin to say, hey, Joe, please understand what I'm telling you. I think that is one progress in this whole process. Like I appealed, I'm still appealing. These young people, they're different from us. They're different from us. Our own time, we did not have a socializing mechanism like the internet and the social media. We did not have quantum of knowledge that Google has placed in the hands of our younger people. We should not take them for granted. I said it at an NTA program, and I'm saying it on your program. The Chinese word for crisis is weiji. Weiji is made up of two words. One is translated loosely as danger. The other is translated loosely as opportunity. There is danger, but there's also opportunity in this crisis. We have not now learned that our young people are energetic, they are knowledgeable, they are capable of organizing and mobilizing. What we do is to identify what good can we mobilize this huge resource for, not leave it as if they are just irritants. This thing has started. It will no matter how we wish it, it will never go away. Another one will come unless we handle these young people better. They have means of socializing that we did not have at our own time. They have knowledge available to them that we did not have at our own time, and they are upwardly mobile, creative, intelligent. There is nothing you can tell me. If you tell me Nigerians are doing Yahoo, somebody who is not an intelligent, who is not computer literate, digitally literate, cannot do Yahoo. So it tells you that, look, we have a youth that are intelligent, for crying out loud. Probably opportunities have not been created for them to channel that creative ingenuity and intelligence positively. That's why they're pushing it negatively. Probably we need to sit down and reconfigure ourselves and see how can we create opportunities for these people to utilize their knowledge, their capacity, their industry, their creativity for the benefit of our country as a nation. I think we need to do that. And Dan, I want to appeal to the media also, you inclusive and every other person, please, these narratives that tend to divide our country along our natural fault lines of religion, region, and ethnicity should be downplayed. God, who in his infinite mercy put us together, gives us certain advantages of being together. We must exploit those advantages much more than we expend our energy discussing the disadvantages of being together. That's my own position, for my country.
Well, thank you very much, sir. And this is an opportunity now for any of our listeners and viewers to send questions to our guests. I will continue also to check on YouTube to pick up any question, and on Facebook to pick up any question from there. So any of our viewers who want to ask a question, please indicate by raising up your hand, or you can type your question on the chat section. I will see it and pick it up there and put it across to our guest tonight. Or you can simply unmute yourself. Then I will know that once you unmute yourself, I will know that you want to speak, and then I'll call on you to ask your question. But at this point, if I may ask our guest again tonight, Mr. Sajo, what do you see as the end point? Because it appears, these EndSARS thing started as a protest, and now it appears it has been infiltrated by hoodlums. Yesterday, we saw high-handedness by the security agencies, and today we see burning and looting across the country. What do you see as the end game here? How do you see these things panning out?
Well, there are two possible options. If well handled, it's definitely going to end soon, because everybody that is involved is tired. And the goodwill that the peaceful protesters enjoyed from ordinary citizens, that goodwill is being eroded. Let's be honest with ourselves. They're losing the goodwill of the ordinary people. I tell you, by the time you loot a shopping mall, most of the shops belong to ordinary people. They don't belong to government. So you're no longer protesting police brutality. You are brutalizing other people who are innocent of whatever you are trying to talk about. So invariably, people will get tired and it will end. That's one option. But the second option is that it could infuriate many more people, and the many more people would come out, and then the clashes will become uglier, and it spirals into something much more than a protest. It could be the beginning of a very dangerous phase in our existence as a nation. But we are praying that it should not get to that level. We've noticed that quite a number of other agitators are trying to cash in on this to introduce their own agitations into it. And that will create another very dangerous mix. But I don't think we will go that far because, like I said, the civility I've seen in the armed forces today gives me a lot of hope. And I pray that the people in government will also wake up to the fact that they hold the aces. They are the ones that can pacify these young people. I have noticed that for the past 3 days, I have been crying that we have not heard the voice of the Minister of Police Affairs. We have not heard. Today, his press secretary has issued a statement. For me, I'm not satisfied.
What is the press statement? Anyways, let us recognize Jethro Paga. He wants to ask you a question. Jethro, please. What's your question to our guest tonight? Jethro.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening,
I appreciate.
How are you, sir?
I'm very fine. I thank God. I thank God that I am part of this call, and I appreciate the privilege to ask you a question. So, you know, while observing the activities that happened yesterday, and then the fact that Lagos is flowing with blood, and as an agile Nigerian youth, I'm also pained because this is our time. If you look at our leaders, my age, I'm 33 years now. And if you look at the history of our country, Gowon was 27 when he led us, and the rest of them were just about around this age range. Now, the president has not addressed us, as you rightly said. So what do you advise Nigerian youths? What do we do? Because I know that you must have witnessed our civil war then, and this is looking something like that. We don't want that to happen, even as youths. So what do you advise us, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The truth is that no country had survived 2 civil wars. So we are not praying for another civil war. And in any case, even if you want to have a civil war today, the boundaries have changed. You know, the divides are not the divides of the past. Where do you get the consensus? Is it in the north? In the north, there is no consensus. Is it in the south, the east, which used to be the east and the south? Do you think you can build a consensus there? You cannot build a consensus. Even the West, that nearly 100% Yoruba, cannot build a consensus. Because if you ask an Ekitiman or an Ndoman that he is returning to Ibadan, he will tell you he doesn't want to. So the truth about it is that we cannot build a consensus now to create, clear-cut boundaries that will enable us fight each other like we did in the past. That cannot happen presently. So, but again, we have to be very, very, very careful that at this point in time, what the youth of Nigeria have done, and this we must commend them, is that their voices, they wanted their voices to be heard, their voices have been heard. But that is just one step. The real step, my brother, is for them to now go back, mobilize, organize, and begin to change the leadership structure of this country and create the kind of leadership that they want. The youth constitute 65% of our population in Nigeria. If the youth can rise with one voice and refuse to reject our own, template for getting leadership for the country, we can get a better leadership. The current template of leadership, the current template of governance is who do you know, not what do you have, how do you do it. Some few political godfathers will sit down in their parlor and determine who leads where, when. The youth can begin to mobilize and say no to that. The youth can use their voting strength now to change the leadership of this country. If our intention is to change the salaries of legislators, we can decide to sponsor legislators who will come and say, look, this salary is bogus, horrendous, and is not in tandem with the reality of the poverty of our country. We're changing it. We're doing this. So I think the youth should now begin to rechannel their energies to changing the leadership structure of Nigeria. But I want you to understand that let's be very honest with ourselves. Power is not Holy Communion. It's only Holy Communion, you go to the church and you open your mouth and the Reverend Father puts it there. Power is something you take, you grab. The force with which they use to force us to listen to them, that's the same force they should apply, perhaps multiply it by a tenfold to take over leadership of this country and do. You made mention of Gawan. Gawan was 32, not 27, he was 32. It was Alfred Dietes Piff that was 27, 28 when he became governor. We had quite, but today, at the age of 40, you are lying down on the sofa in the parlor of your father waiting for your mother to bring food to you. That's unacceptable. At 30, you're supposed to start thinking of setting up your own family, having your own home. But today, at the age of 30, you are still grappling. And there are many areas where our youth are shortchanged in Nigeria. We're only focusing on police brutality. The university system in Nigeria is one of the worst in the world. You know, lecturers treat our young people as if they are prison inmates brought to the university. You cannot pass unless you please me. You know, these are all areas that we need to address so that we reconfigure our country. People should come out of universities with skills, with competencies, with capacities to impact on society. We do not have that anymore. People just go into the university, obey lecturers, be nice boys so that you can graduate. You graduate and come out and do what? Ride Okada. Is that the kind of life we are planning for ourselves? And I think there are a whole gamut of activities that the youth must challenge in this country. But the starting point is this SARS protest. I am fully in support of the fact that this SARS protest creates an opportunity for us to harvest in mobilizing young people so that they can understand that they hold the power. The power is in your hands. You are 65% of Nigeria's population. You are the ones that go out to vote. You are the ones that talks at political campaigns. You are the ones that hold sway. Most of the very comfortable elites do not even register to vote. They don't even come out on the day of the election. A lot of them, if you live in London, Paris, New York, Chicago, you will find that the week of elections, they all jet out of this country, hoping that the elections, if there's rofo, as we call it in Nigeria, they will not be found within the boundaries of Nigeria during the rofo. So a lot of these people, the people that vote in this country are young people and women, honestly. So, and if we can mobilize young people, link up with women, we can take over the leadership of this country and create the kind of leadership that we want. What leadership do we want? One, we need a leadership that is competent. We need a leadership that is capable. We need a leadership that is knowledge-driven. We need a leadership that is in tune with current realities of the world. We need a leadership that will help us jumpstart our country from where we are today to where we ought to have been, you know, a long time ago. We started on the same pedestal, in fact, with a better potential than China and the Asian tigers. See where they are, see where we are. Bamanga Tukur is alive. He is still there. You know him. He was one time PDP chairman when Jonathan was the president. Bamanga Tukur was the one that signed the way bill that moved palm seedlings from Nigeria to Malaysia. Today, Malaysia is the highest producer of palm oil. What are we? You know, net importer of it presently. So it's within a lifetime. It's not something that happened indicates that somebody will tell you American democracy took 200 years. Okay. Malaysian development is within a lifetime. Singapore, the two most respected passports in the world, Japan and Singapore. Japan, you can go to 191 countries with Japanese passport without requesting for a visa. In Singapore, you can go to 190 countries with a passport without requesting for a visa. How many countries can you go with a Nigerian passport? That tells you, our young people, you have to wake up at 4 a.m., and when you wake up at 4 a.m., you go to the embassy and line up and be dehumanized before you can get a visa to any country. That tells you that we really, really need to reconfigure our country. And unfortunately for us, and I'm addressing agitators, the people saying we should divide this country. Let me tell you what happened in the past. We had 3 regions. Then there were agitations. The Edo and Delta of today, well, they were Midwest, and that they were shortchanged by the Yorubas. They needed a state of their own. So we became 4 regions. Then suddenly, the agitations continued. Gawan came and made us 12 regions. All the complaints that were in the 3 regions were shared into the 12 regions. Then again, Murtala came and made it 19. Still, the agitations continued. Babangida came and made it 21. The agitations continued. He made it 30. The agitations continued. Abacha came and made it 36. The agitations still continued. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if we share this country into 100 countries, all the complaints we are having now as a unit, as a unified country, we'll just share it into the constituent countries and continue our fight for agitations, for people who have done this. Let's work to get it right. Getting it right is not very difficult. We can get it right. This is our country. We are the people. We can do it. And our youth have demonstrated to us in no uncertain terms that we can rise up and say enough is enough. And I think that is the benefit of this NSAS protest to the country.
Wow, that's a very, very, very nice presentation, Mr. Sajo. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. It's been a very enlightening discussion with Elomba Television. Let me just tell our viewers and audience that by 7 p.m. we're expecting other guests to speak on this same topic. We're expecting okay, their name just says Adabu Garba, who instituted a court action against Twitter for the way they have been promoting the NSAS protest in Nigeria. We're also expecting Chief Victor Onovo, who was a presidential aspirant and the National Conscience Party in the 2015 presidential election. So we're expecting both of them by 7 p.m. tonight. So we were meant to start this one by 6 p.m. to last for like 50 minutes, but we started a bit late. So we should be rounding up by now. But let us have a concluding discussion with our guest now. So now we have seen what you have just said. In fact, you have given us, there's nothing I can ask now that you have not covered at the present time. But let me just put this thing down to you, sir. Last night, there was the question of the armed forces moving on to Lekki to disperse the protesters. In fact, that was it sparked international outcry. So this morning, the governor said no lives were lost. I've just received a press statement from Amnesty International that indeed 11 lives were lost at Lekki last night. Well, without dragging you into the question of how many lives were lost, but should that really matter whether any lives were lost at all? Should the army have been there? Should the situation have been better handled?
Let's put it very clear. I think the situation should have been better handled, but the controversy as to whether lives were lost or lives were not lost, like you said, I'm not competent to speak about it. I'm not in Lagos. I have seen pictures of bullets that were displayed, but because I'm from an insurgency area, I know blank bullets when I see them. Some of these bullets were blank bullets, not live ammunition. But then that is by the way. In a situation like a protest where a lot of people have gathered, it is nearly impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, I'm not saying with absolute certainty because, like I said, I'm not there. It's nearly impossible for you to dispatch people with some minimum level of force and that there will be no stampede. So even if there were no bullet wounds and things like that, people must have trampled on each other, and that could possibly result in loss of lives. That is absolutely possible. But beyond that, I think what can restore confidence in the entire system is, like the governor of Lagos said, they will set up a panel of inquiry. And if that panel can act expeditiously by coming out with facts and figures,
that's what, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt you at this, but that is where my next question will have covered. If you were the president of the nation, can you tell us what exactly you will do now that you feel, yes, it will help to resolving this crisis at this point, if you are the president?
No, I'll tell you, the first thing the president of this country should do, and we are appealing to him, we are pleading with him, we're begging him, if that is necessary, we're begging him to address Nigeria and Nigerians and focus the address specifically at our children. Tell our kids, look, I'm your father, I'm your grandfather. For very many of them, he's a grandfather. For some of them, he is a father. That as your dad, as your granddad, I am begging you, I'm pleading with you. It doesn't reduce anything from his majesty as the president, from his excellency as his excellency. It doesn't reduce anything, from him to say, please bear with the situation. We've made mistakes, but we are human. We are capable of making mistakes, but that we understand. You have spoken, our ears are wide open, we have listened. Please give us a chance to have a rational approach, a rational thinking in addressing some of the problems that you have identified. That's the first thing. The second thing, like I said, is that as the president of this country, the president should order his people to reach out to every opinion leader, every useful voice in this country, to begin to speak for peace, to speak for unity, to speak for understanding, to kind of assuage the feelings of people from across the divides so that we can restore normalcy. This is absolutely necessary. It's not enough for ministers to sit in their comfort zone in Abuja, and then their states are on fire, and they think it's normal. It's not normal. Senators should stop sitting in that Senate chamber to start saying president should do this, should that. Everybody should go back to his place and begin to identify voices of reason, and these voices of reason should start talking about peace, unity, understanding, and peaceful coexistence. I think that is absolutely necessary, my dear brother.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Sajo, for being with us tonight. It's been a very productive hour. So since the guests we're expecting by 7 p.m. have not joined us, if you don't mind, you can still take a few questions, or you can simply say,
I can, no problem.
Okay, I've had enough. Okay, is there any member of our audience and our viewers who would like to ask a question? You can simply unmute yourself and I will recognize you, and then you can put your question across. If you want to ask a question, simply unmute yourself and then I will recognize you and put your question across. Mr. Sajo, what do you have to say about, because I noticed that this demonstration, initially it appeared to enjoy national acceptance, but now it appears, although you alluded to it earlier, that why is it that the northern part of the country, which should belong to, have not really keyed in? Is it that they do not support the cause, or?
No. Let us be honest with ourselves.
Yes.
The issue we are talking about is SARS.
Yes.
And I tell you, and I'm telling you, that If you go to Borno State, for example, you know, everybody tells you that Zulum is very popular. You understand this?
Yes.
But there is somebody more popular than Zulum in Borno. And do you know the person?
Who?
The head of SAS. There was a time when Kashim Shettima was governor, you know, Major General Rogers from Imo was more popular than Kashim in Borno. As far as certain parts of this country are concerned, they have their own peculiar concerns. And it is the people that address those concerns that they really like. So in most parts of northern Nigeria, SARS does not harass young people. Or even if they do, it's very sparing. It's not the way they do it in the South. I met a young man in southern part of the country who parted with about 300,000 to SARS. You can't get that equivalent in northern Nigeria. So it wasn't a shared problem, so to say. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, it's clear.
It wasn't a shared problem. And so then the northerners feel that they are being massacred in their large numbers. Admittedly, they didn't rise, or where they rose, they did not get support. When Katsina was invaded, Jibia people rose, they protested. They only protested there in Jibia. Nobody, even in other parts of northern Nigeria, joined them. When Sokoto was invaded, part of Sokoto were invaded, the Sokoto people rose, but nobody joined them in the country. You see, the bottom line is that when other people rose in Zaria and other places, nobody joined them. So the problem is we must begin to understand that none of us is free until all of us are free. None of us is safe until all of us are safe. So the day you wake up and you think that Daniel Elomba's problem is his own problem, is not my problem, when my problem comes, it will be very difficult for Daniel Elomba to begin to think that my problem is also his own problem. So we should start thinking within the context of our communality. And you know, my advice always is that we must rediscover our humanity. The day my little daughter told me during the Boko Haram days that there was a bombing and only 3 people were killed, I looked at this girl and I was shocked. So it has reached a point where our children think 3 lives lost is only. So you can understand, it's the way we are configuring ourselves. We look at problems that do not affect us as not our problems. And I think that we are going to be the losers for all of it. And this is what the political class have used to keep us in perpetual poverty. That whenever you raise an issue that there is poverty in this place, they tell you, the people who are complaining is because they don't like me as the leader, not that they are complaining about poverty. And then we accept this very pedestrian explanation to our problems. I think our problem is that, you know, if one person is harassed in Lagos or in Owerri, let it be that everybody in Nigeria has been harassed. If one life is lost in Jibia or in Bulunkutu, let it be that all the lives of Nigerians are at risk. By the time we begin to think of ourselves within the communality of our humanity, that is when we will identify ourselves and talk with one voice. But as it is now, SARS had been harassing our brothers in southern Nigeria, calling them Yahoo boys, asking them to remove their dreadlocks, looking at anybody with a tattoo as a criminal, anybody with a dreadlocks as a criminal, as a Yahoo boy, every rich person. Let me tell you, let me even stretch it. Even our film industry, Nollywood, but 90% of our films show that young people only make money through cultism. So we have stereotyped certain things. So the police will see you very rich, they say you are a cultist. They will begin to harass you. Or they will say you are a Yahoo boy. We must not stereotype anybody. You know, we should not stereotype people according to their age, their religion, their ethnicity, their region. I think these are all, and now we have developed a new coinage. We stereotype people because of their age, their youthfulness. And, you know, we stereotype people because they look, they are successful. We stereotype people because they wear dreadlocks, because they wear tattoo. I mean, it's a choice, for crying out loud. So let them be. And so this is it. And if you look at it, our configuration, majority of Northerners do not behave that way. This is a cultural thing. This is a sociological thing. This is how our nation is configured. You know, certain people in the country behave in a particular manner.
All right, I think your internet network. Okay, he's telling us. Okay.
Problem?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
You're back.
So these are some of the things, and I think we should start conversations around all of these things. We all failed ourselves. We all failed. Even you, we all failed ourselves. And I tell you why we failed ourselves.
Yes.
These things were happening. We were not talking enough. We were not raising our voices enough. I am a witness. I knew, you know, like I told you, we even reached out to government that these things are happening, but government ignored. On Sunday, this Sunday, Daniel, this Sunday that passed, 2 days ago or so, I was on my way back between Kaba and Obajana. It's a distance of less than 50 kilometers. I counted 15 police roadblocks. Exactly. This Sunday. And what did they do? One of them, wearing a red beret, told me, Oga, do me Sunday. I said, I will not do you Sunday. Said, then you will not pass. You can imagine, you know, the brazen nature that these people operate. And you tell me that the authorities don't know? They do know. I managed to reach out to Human Rights Radio in Abuja here, and then they spoke with IG Liaison. And, you know, but because I could reach out to somebody who will talk to somebody. But the truth about it is that a lot of things are happening that people are aware, but people are not reacting the way they should react. Our voices are not loud enough condemning certain things. But our voices now must begin to be loud enough. We are too preoccupied with divisive tendencies. We're not looking at social problems that are that are affecting us as individuals and as groups. And I think we must begin to talk around those social issues.
All right. While we still continue on this subject, Jethro, you made an important point some time ago. So since our other guests are not yet here, I think, do you still have anything to say with regards to your question to Mr. Sajo and then his response with regards to how the political class have addressed the youth problem in Nigeria? Do you have any point to make with regards to that? Jethro, please.
Yes, thanks so much again for giving me the opportunity. I actually appreciate Mr. Sajo for the inputs he gave, and then the insights, and then his response to my questions. I appreciate that he has been able to bring me up as a Nigerian youth. I have the confidence that, yes, if we are actually objective, as we have risen up, and then we have made our voice heard, if we are united and then we are objective, like if we avoid violence, we just continue the peaceful protest, regardless of the assaults we faced, especially yesterday. If we keep our force united, I think that's a very good take-home point. And then it's not to be negligent. I have taken that point too, that we need to stand up, present a candidate as a Nigerian youth, and then try to work around that candidate and polish him well and present into the polity. I think that's what I've been able to grab from that. And then I got a lot of other points that I noted down. So we are going to put this this in action, and I hope that we are going to make a new history beginning from yesterday, 20th of October.
Jethro, can I also ask you a question, or at least ask tell you something that you need to do?
I'm listening, sir.
Okay. Look, you know what the political class are doing now? They are talking about power shift from the north to the south. This is all they are telling you. What they are saying is the turn of the south is the turn of the north southwest, or is the turn of this, that the north has had it and things like that. Is that not the only language they are talking? Did you hear anybody? Sir. Did you hear anybody in the political class talking about generational power shift? The old people who were leading Nigeria when you were in primary school or when you were in nursery school, you know, they are still the ones leading Nigeria. Are we not going to talk about generational power shift? Are we not going to create a bar and say, look, no to elders, no to old people? Can't we raise our voices and say, no, we have a job to do. We should. And then we are now, the NSAS is telling you that from now onward, somebody who is going to lead this country must demonstrate sufficient knowledge in all aspects that require his attention. We are not asking him to be an economist, but he must know the indices, the economic indices that affect livelihoods. We are not asking him to be an educationist, but he must understand what functional education means to the process of developing a young person to become useful in society. We are not asking him to be a medical doctor, but he must understand the relationship between nutrition and health. He must understand the correlation between a good healthcare system and medical tourism. We are not asking him to be an agricultural scientist, but he must understand what food security means for a growing population like Nigeria that started at 60-something million and is now 200 million and is still going upward. So Jethro, you are the ones to set the template and say, this is what we want for our country. Today anybody can become anything. People to become legislators, all they need to do is to bribe electorates. And they come to the House of Assembly and they are treating every subject under the sun as if it is rocket science. They don't understand anything. And we're sitting down and we're looking at them, for crying out loud. We need people who understand the governance process beyond just collecting salaries at the end of the month. We must have a template that says if you want to be leader of Nigeria, you must have a minimum qualification and demonstrable competence in the art of governance, which involves an understanding of all aspects of public lives to the extent that you know what you want for the country. We need food security, we need fiscal security, we need good education, functional education that brings out youth that are competent, confident, and capable of standing there, skillful enough to stand their grounds. We need a healthcare system that will attract people to come and receive treatment in Nigeria rather than Nigerians going abroad. We need a security architecture that is anchored around increased intelligence gathering and intelligence sharing, not use of brute force. These are the things that the next leader, who must be a younger person, who should be alert, who should understand, who should be upwardly mobile, who is capable of reaching out to ordinary people to connect so that we can move our country forward. These are the arguments, these are the issues that you raise. It's not about the tribe of the person, it's not about the religion of the person, it's not about the region he comes from, but it's about his capacity to propel Nigeria on the traction to achieve our full potential. We have a human capital, a population that can change the course of history. The Chinese will tell you that even if the heavens will fall, they have enough people to hold it back. They're so proud of their population.
That's true. That's true.
We lament our population. We lament our population because we have rendered our population unproductive. So these are the issues we should be addressing as a people and as a country, not the issues of what tribe is he going to come from. Somebody called me and said, you Hausas, I enjoy it. I told him, my friend, I know some of the ministers that are very close to me that are from the north. They are their right hand men, the people that work for them in the process of stealing Nigerian money are from the south. They don't even trust a northerner to come close to them. And it is the same thing with your southern brothers. They will never allow a southerner to come close to them to help them in stealing money because he will go back home and talk. So we only have unity in destruction, unity in stealing Nigerian resources. And they're sitting down. You want to have this, you want to have this. I don't care where my president comes from. I don't care where my governor comes from. I don't care where my legislature comes from. But what I care about is that when my child graduates from the university, if he cannot get a white-collar job, he should have, the atmosphere should be created sufficiently enough for him to actualize his potentials as an individual in this country. I want a president, a leader, a legislator who will create laws that will make it possible for anybody, to get whatever he wants, not this hegemony that is happening. You are watching me. Let me tell you now, they are building hegemonies. Only the children of the political class go into politics. Only the children of top civil servants go into civil service. Only the children of generals go into the senior cadre of the armed forces. Only the children of top police officers go into the police. Only the children of judiciary go into become high court judges. Okay, sit down. These people are building hegemonies for themselves and their children, and you are watching, and you are waiting for just the man to be called a president from your village. What does that do for you? So we need to really wake up. We need to wake up. We need to begin to talk about Nigeria within the context of the issue of developing this country as an egalitarian society, a society where there is equity, where there is justice, where there is fairness, where there is empathy for each other, where there is sympathy for what happens to every one of us, and where we can call a nation that we are very, very proud of. It's not rocket science. It's not something that requires somebody to go to the moon. We can do it here. We have all the potentials. I keep telling people, look at what the Igbo nation is doing to Nigeria. All they do is that they pick a young boy, bring him to the shop, give him 4 years, 5 years university education, practical university education in shopkeeping. Then they settle him, and then he opens his shop and he's successful. Nobody has been doing that in this country. And that is the secret of the success of the Igbo nation in Nigeria.
That's true.
While the rest of us, what do? What we do is that those who are fortunate to go to the university, finish the university and come and sit down in our parlor. If we're tired, we buy them Okada. It doesn't work that way. The 4 years, the 5 years the boy spends in the shop learning the art of running a shop is a university for him. He gets a degree at the end of the day, and then he opens his own shop. He knows exactly how to run this shop. Isn't that what the Igbo nation does to Nigeria? That's why if you go to any village in this country and you don't find an Igbo man, run away. Because they are the barometers for measuring how viable any community is. At one time in my village, there was not an Igbo man. We had to go and see which Igbo man can we convince to come and live in our village.
That's funny.
So I am telling you that we need to begin to look at our population as a resource. We need to look at our population as a resource. The Chinese will tell you, even if the heavens decide to fall, we have enough people to push it back. We must also begin to say we have enough people in Nigeria to hold back whatever adversity that befalls this country. But what are we doing? Every government will tell you, our population is too high. It's growing too high. Is the population not a resource? Is it not a resource? How can you complain of resources that God has given you? It's because you have not managed the resources properly. Period. You're not adding value to anything. The way when I was born, my parents, my uncles were using simple hoe to farm. I have passed 60 now. They're still using simple hoe. We have not improved on that. Your people in your own part of the country, they go to the farm with the cutlass. They still go to the farm with the cutlass. Nothing has changed. We're not improving. But you, Dan, you are now running an online television. So you have improved from posting your stories as a blogger. You've gone to an online television station. Yeah, you have improved. But we're not talking. So this is what we're saying.
All right.
Systems must improve.
Mr. Sajo, we thank you very much. We have been enjoying you for the past 1 hour. Let's announce to our guests that our guest for 7 p.m. tonight has just joined us. Chief Martin Onovo has just joined the program. So in a very short while, we will be allowing him to take the floor. We have been speaking with Mr. Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information at Adamawa State. He has been very active. He's now running an NGO in Abuja now. Sorry, I've forgotten the name of your NGO. You can say
it's Future Now project, and our key activity is that we're telling young people that the future is now. That today is the yesterday. Is the tomorrow they were talking about yesterday. So if you really want a better tomorrow for yourself, start working on it now.
Okay, we thank
We're not saying you can do future tomorrow. It's future now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we thank you very much, sir. We see a hand raised up, but unfortunately, we cannot take the hand now. We want to invite Chief Martin Onovo. Please,
I assure you that anytime you call me again, I will be ready for you.
I thank you very much, sir, Mr. Sajo, for stepping in on such a short notice to grant us this wonderful interview we've had tonight. Thank you very much for spending this hour with us, and we wish you well in all your endeavors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Chief Martin Onovo, you are very much welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
I know I have spoken with you over the telephone, but this is the first time I'm seeing your face. So it's a pleasure to speak with you. I've been following your comments elsewhere with regards to the situation in the country now. So we're happy to have you tonight to speak on this very, very important topic, the situation in the country now with regards to the End SARS protests. So without wasting further much time, sir, what do you think is the root cause of this End SARS protests ravaging Nigeria?
Well, I think that we are all agreed on all sides that the root cause is bad governance. I also think that the government has also agreed indirectly. And the evidence of bad governance is clear to an unquestionable degree. The results we have seen are very catastrophic. Right now, we're the third most terrorized country in the world. We're the third most terrorized country in the world. And that's not my opinion. That's according to the Global Terrorism Index. That's one. Two, we are now the world's capital of extreme poverty. We have the highest number of people who are extremely poor in the whole world. SARS was just a reflection of the lawlessness, where civil servants, court officials, police officials will act with corruption and impunity we were here when the Chief Justice of Nigeria was harassed in the most unlawful manner that led to his forced resignation. So the alliance of lawlessness is all over the place. Government has completely disregarded and turned the country to a Stone Age dictatorship. And that is what was reflected in the behavior of police and military officials, particularly SARS. Because what SARS was doing is also done in many criminal investigation departments of the police. The different dimension in SARS was the extrajudicial killing. Otherwise, police in Nigeria will routinely detain people and not charge them to court. But SARS acted particularly with impunity. And the young people were even more particularly affected. It's also an indication of the ambience of lawlessness, where SARS left its primary function, which is anti-robbery, turned itself to investigate, in quote, economic crimes. That is not the role of SARS. That is the role of EFCC. But because this is the most corrupt government we have seen, corruption with impunity has overwhelmed public institutions. Unfortunately for us now, a simple, peaceful protest could not be managed by this incompetent government. And it has led to this crisis, which we have seen now. And as I talk to you today, there are cases of looting, all provoked by the brutal actions of the government against peaceful protesters. So with this situation, we are not surprised. It was predicted by so many ordinary people. We knew it will come to this because the government has a track record. The government has been in office for over 5 years. I am sure you will remember the case of Shiite protesters. Unarmed Shiite protesters. The allegation is that almost 1,000 were killed. Unarmed Shiite protesters by the same Nigerian army. In the same way, you remember the case of IPOB. Amnesty International reported over 150 were killed by the same Nigerian army. So we're not surprised. It is in the character of the under Abur attack to attack innocent civilians. And the case of NSAS protesters, because these were young people who, when the army ordered them to disperse, did not disperse because they believed it was their own national army. They knelt down with their flags, started singing the national anthem. Now, what kind of a Stone Age criminal force shoots at such people? They knelt down with Nigerian flags and were singing the national anthem. And our own national army uses live ammunition on innocent young protesters. I mean, lies no more exist in Nigeria. You know, for a long time we have been saying anything goes. And yet, anything goes in Nigeria, but it has continuously got worse. And we have this situation now where it is close to irreversible, very close.
Right. We thank you very much for this elucidation at this point. What people are asking, last night there is this controversy over whether some lives were lost when the military stormed the Lekki toll gate. The Lagos State governor said no lives were lost at that particular incident. But a few minutes ago, I received a press statement from Amnesty International saying that at least 11 lives were lost. How do you feel about this controversy, whether lives were lost or whether no lives were lost at all? What's your thought about it?
There is no controversy. There is no controversy. What you're calling a controversy is what I will call a denial. What you're calling a controversy is what I will call a denial. Amnesty, according to you, has a report that 5 lives were lost. According to this day newspaper, 1 life was lost. Eyewitnesses say several lives were lost and that there was a cover-up. That the Nigerian army took away the corpses of the dead. And now there are other reports of previous incidents saying that the Nigerian army, it performs this kind of illegitimate and lawless operation, tries to destroy the evidence. So we don't see any controversy. We see a denial, and in the course of time, the full evidence will be presented. So there is no controversy.
Right. We thank you for our guests and listeners. Our guest tonight is Chief Martin Onovo, the presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party in the 2015 presidential election. I hope it's 2015, sir. Yes, it's 2015 presidential election.
2015, yes.
Yes, 2015, yeah.
Yes,
the National
2015, yes.
Yeah, the National Conscience Party. We know that the National Conscience Party is the political party formed by the late Chief Gani Fawemi.
Chief Gani Fawemi.
Chief Gani Fawemi, right. So this is the gentleman, Chief Martin Onovo, we are having as our guest tonight. So if you have any question for him on this issue or on any other issue that is burning your mind, please feel free to indicate by raising your hand through the device, and then I will recognize you. My question to you, Chief Onovo, at this point will be, do you think that the president of the Federation has handled this SARS protest across the nation aright?
Clearly not. Clearly not. The president, we have called the president a dictator, a Stone Age dictator in the past. We are not going to withdraw that. That attitude has been seen with EndSARS. He almost completely ignored them with tokenistic and condescending approvals of the requests of EndSARS. And because the government has lost credibility, not because the EndSARS people are unreasonable, it is because the government has lost credibility. The EndSARS people did not believe the government and continued the protest, asking for leading actions to convince them. That could have been easily achieved. Second, the government could have engaged with the protesters. The ideas that there are no leaders is not correct. There is a shared leadership in EndSARS. So any legitimate attempt to negotiate would have been helpful. And the symptomatic, we've done this, we've disbanded SARS, and we're going to create SWAT, and no member of the previous SARS will be allowed to join SWAT. Now, this would have ordinarily been reasonable. But the situation is complicated. Same government disbanded SARS in 2017, disbanded SARS in 2018, disbanded SARS in 2019, and this is 2020, the government is disbanding SARS. Why would you expect reasonable people to believe the government? So the protesters did not believe the government. Now, the story that 35 have been indicted and are going to be prosecuted or disciplined otherwise. Names were not published, videos were not shown, follow-ups were not indicated. There was no verification for the stories that government has lost credibility. Why will it now blame those who refuse to believe it? So unless you are biased, in every way you look at it, it was the same failure of governance that the protesters were complaining of that we saw. It was failure of governance when the government hired thugs to attack protesters. And I know you're going to ask me, how do you know the government hired the thugs? There are videos showing security vehicles. The thugs that came to Lagos came in government buses. The ones that went to Abuja were in security vehicles. Secondly, those who were apprehended confessed. So the evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. It is the government that was committed to disperse the protesters. It wasn't hoodlums. The hoodlums were operating independently. And the environment for hoodlums to operate was created by the government. Because the protesters did not prohibit security agencies from doing their works. So we need to get the facts there. And if not, then we risk repeat of the same mistakes. So the government mismanaged it by first not admitting before the army attacked the protesters that the vice president gave a half-hearted admission, claiming that the government responded slowly. And the protesters were not in the mindset to even listen to a vice president who they know has no significant influence in the government. So the facts are very clear. This could have been handled better. Everybody, including the Minister of Information, agreed that the protesters were justified. So if you agree that the protesters are justified, it was your failure. You first have to admit that. Now, the Inspector General of Police, I feel sorry for him because he must take directives from the president. But he is the commander of the police force. That is why he is Inspector General. To resign. Because along the entire line, the reporting line for federal SARS to the DIG investigation or operations, whichever one federal SARS reports to, probably DIG investigation. From DIG investigation to the IG. For the state SARS to the Commissioner of Police. So somebody should take responsibility. And because the matter is national, whoever should take responsibility will be in a national position. The IG is one officer. I feel sorry for him. The police budget is completely inadequate. Police has about 370,000 policemen. And then the Nigerian government budgets 320 billion naira to cover uniforms, logistics, arms, equipment. That is senseless. The same government budgets 125 billion for the National Assembly of 469 legislators. If you do the arithmetic, you're going to find out that a Nigerian policeman costs Nigeria about 867,000 every year. But a Nigerian legislator costs Nigeria 266 million every year. The arithmetic is simple. 300 divided by 371,000 policemen, billion divided by 469 legislators. Then you will see the inhumanity of man, that it costs us as Nigerian people more than 300 times the cost of one policeman to maintain one legislator. So that's why I feel sorry for the Inspector General, but he must also take responsibility, because if he does not, then ultimately the Commander-in-Chief must take the responsibility and resign. Commander-in-Chief must take the responsibility and resign. And it may have been smart if the Commander-in-Chief were competent to suggest to the IGP to resign and make that sacrifice. I could be given another appointment. So these things are simple when you have ethical and competent people in leadership positions. Unfortunately, the arrogance of power. And that is what you saw with the military massacre. We'll keep praying and hope that things turn out better.
Okay, we thank you very much, Chief Onovo. At this point, if you have any question, please, now is the time to ask them. So now, my next question will be, if you are the president, for instance, what exactly will you do now that you think once you do that, it will help to ameliorate the situation?
Okay, the first thing is that if you are smart, the English say prevention is better than cure. You don't allow a situation to deteriorate, and then you start scampering around for solutions. This was clearly preventable. All you needed was the rule of law. SARS can make arrest. Torture is forbidden in Nigeria. SARS has no right to torture. SARS has no right to kill. And reports were made, and officials have confirmed that reports were made. So we can't say, what do we do now, without first admitting that we will not be here if we had done things right. So that is the emphasis I want to make.
All right, thank you, sir. So that I'm sorry, I wouldn't want you
we
to.
Cannot.
Sorry, Chief Onovo, I wouldn't want you to lose sight of your thought. But let's allow. Sir Ibodike has indicated earlier that he wanted to ask a question, so maybe his question will align, or his comment will align with our further thoughts on this matter. So, Sir Ibodike, can you please what do you have to say with what Chief Onova has been telling us for the past?
Well, you remember I lost that at some point. So maybe you may have answered what I wanted to ask. But first of all, I want to appreciate his contribution to this matter we have in our hands. That is quite incisive. Then he contested 2015 election with the president. My question, basically, I don't know if you have answered it. What could he have done differently in handling this? If he has, given the scenario we have in our hands, assuming he assumed the president and the scenario have played to this point, and he finds himself this matter handed over to him, what will he do to get Nigeria back to track? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, super excellent question. Super excellent question. I'm going to answer in two parts. The first part is that there is no competent president who will allow situations to degenerate this far. There is no country with a competent president where people can be killed extrajudicially, and there is no corrective action. This particular General Buhari has been in power since 2015. These reports are countless. If he's unaware, his subordinates should be. Now, if the situation got to this point where we had the EndSARS protests, the first government could have done was admit what are clear facts. Because people have been killed, there are records, they should not have been killed. Nobody should be killed extrajudicially. Even an armed robber should not be killed extrajudicially. An armed robber should be arrested, an armed robber should be investigated and properly charged. Now, I'm sure those with a legal background will remember the case of Nasiru Bello versus Attorney General of the Federation. Nasiru Bello was a convicted armed robber. But before his appeal was heard, he was executed. So the law is very clear. You don't do that. No president who is responsible will have even one citizen killed. And he will not extrajudicially. And he will not try to take corrective action, first for justice. So that is the right thing to do. Let us start from there. And that, if that had been done, and that SARS had not detained people unlawfully, some for 2 years, some for 9 months, unlawfully, the law does not allow you to detain more than 48 hours. You either give administrative bail or you charge to court. And if the police has a need to detain anyone beyond 48 hours, what you need to do is you charge the person to court and ask the magistrate to grant you the authority to detain. So it doesn't mean that if you have an armed robber and you haven't finished the investigation, you can quickly release him. No, what you do, you take him to court. This is the fact we have about this armed robber. We will need to have him in detention till we conclude our investigations. It's very simple. The law provides for all this. What you have seen in Nigeria today with this EndSARS is, in one word, lawlessness. So the first thing is that you cannot allow lawlessness to prevail. Because once you allow lawlessness, then that's that tendency to anarchy. And leadership is by example. So if you are president, the first thing is that you must obey all laws. You cannot disregard the Constitution. The Constitution has a process for removing a Chief Justice of the Federation. If you want him removed, you need to follow that process. The Constitution says you cannot spend without appropriation. If you want to spend, you follow the Appropriation Act. Now, if the expenditure you want to make is not in the budget, you can go to the National Assembly for a supplementary budget. I'm just talking about lawlessness, because that is the foundation of all that we have seen. It is only a lawless SARS that will be killing innocent people extrajudicially. It is only a lawless army that will go and shoot innocent people who are protesting. It is only a lawless president that will remove a chief justice through harassment. It is only a lawless president that will spend public resources without appropriation. So we have tolerated a lot of lawlessness. And that is why, because the political leadership itself is lawless, because it is the political leadership that sets the standard. So the first thing is that there is no way you can have this scenario. Let us go to the second stage. With a responsible government, there is no way you can have this scenario. And Alhaji Barabo Musa has called the government irresponsible, and we agree with him. So that is why you even had this scenario. Professor Oshimbajo is a lawyer. He should know this. He should be able to advise his principal. So, but because of the ambience of lawlessness, he may have also tolerated the situation. Let us move on to the second part of the question. As at the point, if we had made mistakes and EndSARS protest starts, the first thing is to admit the facts. Now, like I said, the government had lost credibility, so the protesters were not willing to believe anything the government said. There are actions you can take immediately to show good faith. And I earlier mentioned that the Inspector General of Police should have resigned. He's one officer. He can be given a political appointment. Somebody will have to take responsibility. Somebody has to be held accountable. And between the Commander-in-Chief and the Inspector General of Police, it would have been better to sacrifice an Inspector General of Police, and you can give him another appointment. It's normal. And I'm telling you, if the Inspector General had been retired, the protest would have been brought to an end. Because that would have brought back some credibility to a government that had lost credibility. All the promises made by the government campaign, it didn't follow up with. In the mindset of the people, the government had no credibility. That is why even when the government disbanded SARS in response to the protesters did not believe them. They changed it to EndSARS, EndSWAT, because they know that the government has no credibility. If the government had not wasted its credibility, immediately it disbanded SARS, the protesters would have moved away. So let us be in the mindset of prevention is better than cure. Let us not create crisis and then start asking for solutions. Now that the situation degenerated to this point, it is very simple. A high-level government official, minister or secretary to the government, could have gone with security to the Lekki toll. The governors that went to meet the protesters, nobody attacked them. The governors went with security, nobody attacked them. Governor Kwayi in Enugu went and met the protesters. Even Sanwo-Olu in Lagos met the protesters. So, a high-level government person, maybe not General Buhari because of his age and health, a high-level government person, chief of staff to the president or secretary to the government of the federation, could have come with security and sat down with the EndSARS protesters at the epicenter of the protest, which is the Lekki toll gate. Okay, we are here. This is what we have promised. What else do you want? And if you listen to the protesters, they accepted the government solution, but they wanted action. And they knew that once they stopped the protest, the same government that made false will also disregard the commitment. So all that was required was at that same toll gate, because that's what they wanted. This we can do within 6 months. This we can do within 3 weeks. This we can do. You guys must nominate somebody to sign your part of the agreement. Simple. And the protesters would have gone home with that piece of paper that you signed. But the government has this Stone Age dictatorial disposition, which is not democratic. Because if you claim that you're elected, listen to my choice of words. If you claim that you're elected, according to the Constitution, that Constitution makes the people the sovereign. You are their servants. So you can't have arrogance in dealing with them. You need to realize that they employed you and that they are paying your salary. And that same Constitution gives them the authority to remove you from office. Yes, because the National Assembly represents the people, and the National Assembly to remove a democratically elected president. So it's straightforward. Now that everything had failed, you needed to make that up and have something in paper that they can hold on to. If they had done that, it would have ended. But now they moved in with the army. And like I told you, we are not surprised. The massacre of Shiites in Kaduna, the massacre of protesters in the southeast. So this is the dictatorial, Stone Age dictatorial disposition of the government. To use violence, that is unfortunate, that is unlawful, that is not democratic. I hope I have attempted the question. Thank you, sir.
We thank you very much, Chief Onovo, for the insightful discussion. The interview will soon be coming to an end. So if you have a question or comment to make, now please is the time to do it. You can do that by simply using the device to raise up your hand, or you can unmute yourself. And once you do that, I will recognize you that you wanted to ask a question or make a comment, and I will call upon you to do so. Now, while we wait to see whether any question will come out. All right, Jethro, please, what do you have to say?
All right, thank you again, Sir Daniel. Thank you so much, Chief Onovo. I had asked an earlier presenter the question, but because I need to have, let me say, a collection of insights so that we as Nigerian youth should work with. I want to ask you, sir, what do you think the Nigerian youth should do? Because since this protest has now degenerated into a crisis, we have blood spilled and we are actually crying as youths. Now, what do you think we should do from here as Nigerian youths? Thank you.
Well, the youth may not like my response because of the generational gap, but I know it's the right response. And when they get to my age, they will also know it's the right response. The first thing is that the youth has to back. You are backing off because you are making a superior judgment. You need to change. Now, the army is on the street. There has been some overreaction by hoodlums. That has become an excuse for a murderous government to unleash even further massacre. And violence never, as people, we propose no violence. And that is one of the reasons why we strongly supported it. Now that the government has provoked violence, the response cannot be violence, because that will become destructive. The first thing is to back off from the streets. We have the social media. We have the courts. We have the regular media. We have the International Criminal Court. We have the first thing is that we must stop that will cause violence or that will escalate violence. From the streets. We can take this protest, or we can continue the protests, become bloody, because we are dealing with a bloodthirsty government. It killed in Kaduna unarmed Shiites. It killed peaceful IPOB protesters, internal disturbance in the IDP camp at Ran. So, and many ordinary people predicted that the government will become going to unleash the military. Has happened. So a lot of these things are predictable. So the first thing is that the youth, your demands are right. Even the government has admitted that your demands are right. And when I'm talking about the government, I'm talking about both the executive and the legislature. If you were not right, we will not support you. But that is not an option, must be removed completely.
I think our guest's network has just fallen off. Let's hope he will rejoin us in a short while, because we'll soon be bringing the interview to an end in any event. While we wait for Chief Onovo to rejoin the program, if he's possible. Yes, I think he's back. I learned the network is generally very poor in Nigeria today.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, you're back. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome back. With the face of your beautiful wife. Okay.
Is what you see on the phone?
Do you realize my hands?
Right. Yes, I see your hand. Let's allow. I think Chief Onovo, is your audio device on? Or hello, Chief Onovo.
I think it's on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I think it's still your network is still is coming on and off. Let's be listening to Saibodike while Chief Onovo rejoins us. So,
okay, it's just to ask for that question to him. I feel a little differently from his position. I feel that the youth have started this protest. It is not an exclusive problem and concern of the youth. It's the general breakdown of the system of governance in Nigeria. And I think that the youth have done well to have started this move. And I feel strongly that beyond their risking their life further against the brutes and wicked barrels of gun of this government, the people who have voices in this nation should also sit back to take it off from there until we get the government down to address all the issues that were raised by these youth in their demands. That's what I feel. If you feel differently, I want to see his reaction on this. Did you get me?
Yes. Very clearly, I agree with you. But they cannot back down. It's their struggle. We have supported the beginning. We will continue to support them. The key thing is to prevent escalation of violence, because violence does not provide remedy. To stop the escalation of violence is to withdraw from the streets, not from the struggle. Is to withdraw from the streets. That is where the army is. That is where they're shooting the young people dead. So that's our position. We're not saying withdraw from the struggle. We're saying withdraw from the streets now, immediately. Because we must put the lives of these young people. And that is the right thing to do. The Nigerian army will be shooting at innocent young people who are kneeling with the Nigerian flag, singing the national anthem. You cannot confront them with this. We will confront them, and we will confront them otherwise. We will confront them intellectually, we will confront them morally, we will confront them legally, we will confront them internationally and politically. So the key thing is, let us make sure we don't give the military opportunity for more violence. Withdraw from the streets. That is the position now.
All right.
Thank you.
Before we go back to Chief Ibodiga, let's listen from Hope, please, with regards to the issue now raised. Hope, can you unmute yourself and tell us what you think? Either a question or a comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, my question is this. The youths who the president said they were lazy and they weren't doing anything. We know that China has a large number of youths and they made provision of the amenities. These politicians get into office, they are paid millions of naira, and you see the youths roaming around the streets with no jobs. They are collecting the salaries. Why are you saying that the youths, enough of them on the streets, without them laying out this, without them laying their lives for this, nothing will be done? We're talking about the police brutality. How do we get there? The police brutality, how do you recruit the police officers? How much are they paid at the end of the month? Is it enough for them to care for their families without them asking for anything on the road? The money that we get from the oil is being distributed within the political elites. We know that they go overseas, they buy houses, they move their families there, they come here and they come back home and get the talks. They pay these youths peanuts to protect them, to fight for them during the political rallies and so on. So if you're saying now that the youths are out on the street, try to make sure that the world hears their voice, because one, there's no roads, no social amenities, no electricity. So I think what the youths are doing should be a continuous thing for them to hear their voice, either for Buhari to step down and reverse the money, the large sum amount of money that the House of Senate, House of Assembly are collecting on a monthly basis, and the youths have got nothing.
All right. Thank you very much. Chief Onovo, how do you respond to this point? That why should the youth withdraw from the street when basically they are withdrawing to nothing?
Well, the youth must win the streets. See the direction today after the shooting yesterday. It's been basically violence for violence. And like I said, philosophy no to violence because violence only destroys. If you burn down the Nigerian Ports Authority, you are increasing the poverty of the Nigerian people because the Nigerian Ports Authority needs to be fixed. And it will be fixed with funds that you could have used for education or for health. So let's get this very clear. We're not saying withdraw from the struggle. We're saying change strategy. This one has become too bloody. The strategy of protesting on the streets has led to loss of lives. And the first thing is to protect life. The youth that you're complaining have nothing. Today, have their lives, have time because they are young to remedy all the dysfunctional situations in the country. So don't misunderstand withdraw from the streets as withdraw from the struggle. I was a youth, I was a student union leader. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. No, we can hear you, sir.
We can hear you.
Okay, so the key thing is, instead of the same youth who want the good future for, to die in the streets, when they die in the streets, how do they achieve the good future? What we're saying, the strategy of the street has led to bloodshed. We must first stop the bloodshed. And because the government is irresponsible, we cannot trust the government to stop the bloodshed. So the youth should stop the bloodshed. How? Withdraw from the streets. And I have given many other fronts on which the war can be carried out. I have said we can continue the war politically, the struggle. We can continue it legally. We have the social media. We have the courts. So for now, street protests should be discontinued immediately. Immediately. In any decision you make in life as a young person, you must do a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis. Let us not allow our youth to lose their right to life to an irresponsible. So again, I repeat, withdraw from the streets. That does not mean withdraw from the struggle. Withdraw from the streets. Thank you.
We thank you very much, Chief Onovo, for being with us tonight. And the last question we'll take, if you don't mind, before you finally leave, is Jethro has been raising up his hand. Maybe does he disagree with you that the youth should withdraw or not? Jethro, what do you think?
All right. Thank you so much, sir, again for the privilege to speak. Actually, you know, my heart and my eyes actually flowed with tears when he actually made the point that, and then strongly, that we should withdraw. So you remember that it is this continuous stay on the streets that at least the international community are also voicing to support us. I saw some videos of the former Lagos State governor in France, where some protesters were seen around the hotel that he lodged, and then another video from US, and as such. So if you said we should withdraw from the streets and then we should use some of these social media handles that we're familiar with. I wanted to also remind you that we were expecting a guest that is already petitioning or suing Twitter for allowing the protests to actually be is it displayed or presented on Twitter. So if Facebook is also is it sanctioned or sued, how or where else do we showcase our grievances? And then I think what you are saying that we don't need to keep this, our lives. What is the life, sir, if we cannot actually have a government that speaks for us? I fully know that a US citizen anywhere in this world, one single US citizen has value that 100 soldiers can be deployed anytime to protect. We are in Nigeria and we are being treated as though we are immigrants. So it's a pain to hear that we should withdraw from the street. I understand that you love us, you like that we should stay alive. But I also remember that no revolution is easy. We appreciate the blood of our brothers and sisters that has been shed already. And we hope that it will not continue. I'm not backing those who have destroyed or looted some properties. It's not right. But the excuse is the anger that they saw when they were being shot. But to say we should withdraw, I feel that that's rather a discouragement. You should have given one of the suggestions that some of you that are aged would now start up. Maybe you can start yours and say, stop killings of the NSAS protesters, so that we would say that yes, you at your own age are trying to protect our interest by keeping us alive and stepping in to start your own protest for our sake. That we, that should have been the backing. But I did not actually dispute, because for me, what you said is an advice and that's your own view. And I really appreciate that. But then I will now be able to now weigh that and see how we can now use a collection of your suggestions so that we'll now be able to take the right decisions. But what we want is that this fight has to yield good results for us and our elderly, so that we have a good Nigeria to turn over to the incoming generation, because this is our own generation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Jethro. I will advise you as a young man, you must know the difference between the younger and the older. The difference is that the younger have more energy. The older have more experience. Now,
that's true, sir.
You cannot confront the federal government of Nigeria in violence. The Nigerian government has about 1 million armed people, if you count all the armed forces and all the paramilitary agencies. You saw what happened at the toll gate. You have no chance in a violent conflict, but you have a chance in a moral, intellectual, social, or international confrontation. Even spirit
That's true.
confrontation. So what we are saying is, we have supported NSAS publicly because we agree. And even the government minister for information implied that the demands are right. So even though you don't believe him, I don't believe that. But the fact is that gives you moral victory. Second is that you are not supposed to stop your struggle. Don't misunderstand me. I was vice president of the Ibadan Students Union when we did the SAP protest in 1989. Universities were shut down in the whole country because it was national for 5 months. We were at home for 5 months. So we were youth like you, don't make that mistake. Secondly, non-violent struggles have yielded results, but because you're young and strong, you think that energy will do everything. No, strategy will do it. And I will give you examples. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, he believed in non-violence. He suffered, him and his supporters suffered a lot of violence, a lot of deaths, but they triumphed. The US civil struggle, they insisted on no violence. They survived. So the idea that for a struggle to be effective, it must be violent, you need to banish that from your mind. It is not true. Many non-violent struggles have succeeded. When the struggle in South Africa got violent, the apartheid regime locked up Mandela for 26 years or 27. He was in prison as the leader. And in all those periods, apartheid was using violent suppression. But today, what has happened? So I will not blame you, because when I was young like you, I also wanted action now, results now. And I have told you that what you are doing, we have done, because you guys keep thinking that we did nothing. What you're doing, we have done. And experience. We didn't say come out from the street on the first day. Now that you have turned violent, you need to leave the streets immediately. We don't want you dead. We want you alive. That is most important. Please convince your comrades to leave the streets. Use my name, say that I said so. Leave the streets now, don't leave the struggle, but leave the streets because we want you alive. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
We thank you very much, Chief Onovo and Jethro, for that very, very interesting exchange. We also thank you very much, Sir Ikem Ighodike, for your contributions tonight, and all our viewers and listeners. Now we will take the final word from Chief Onovo before we call it a day. Even hope you are still raising up your hand. Please make it very brief for us to allow Chief Onovo to give us his final thoughts, and then merge it with whatever you have to say. Very briefly, please, quickly.
Yeah. Are you hearing me?
Yes, quickly.
Clearly.
He talked about the struggle in South Africa. Mandela paid a price for that. He was jailed for a number of years. Our leaders don't listen. The president has had a definite ears. Without this struggle, drawing attention of the international media, international people to Nigeria to know that this is what is happening. Elected leaders, they pay them huge amounts of money, while the number of Nigerian youths are lavishing in poverty, who have struggled so hard to graduate from university without a job. And at that, I'm not saying that the violence. The thing is that who started the violence? It was the army who shot at the peaceful protest, because we know that we don't have faith in Nigerian government. You disband SARS, the next minute you start a SWAT team. That shows how corrupt, how untrustworthy the government is. That's all I could say. I've heard all you said, that the struggle continues. Mandela paid the price. We want to show the Nigerian government that enough is enough. Enough is enough. The youth languishing in prison, the ones that come out from the university haven't got a job. And the House of Assembly, the legislators, they are all there. They have protection. I know someone who was elected as a minister in 1983. He served under Shagari. Up till now, he still gets pension. His wife travels abroad. He has 4 houses in London. He was just a minister at that republic. And he has total package. Now that he's dead, he's not alive anymore. But his wife still benefits from federal government. So what should
youth be suffering? For
All right.
how long?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll allow Chief Onovo to very respond to you and then to what you have just said and give us his final thoughts before we call it a day. Thank you very much for your contribution. So Chief Onovo, please, your final thoughts tonight.
Well, I agree with all your highlights about injustice in Nigeria. And that is why End SARS and End Bad Governance is justified. And that is why we support it. We have been in the struggle earlier than now. The only difference between your position and my position is that I'm saying change the street strategy and keep the youth alive. Now, you're saying that we have got international attention to street strategy. Excellent. Now we have the videos. There's an international criminal court. There are Nigerian courts. We have the social, we have the political space. We have the social space. This is not, there is not one way to do a struggle. And I've given you other instances. So what we are proposing to you is all the injustice you complained about, I've lived with it here. I've struggled as a youth. I've struggled as an adult. So you are very right about that. But what we're saying, let us not even complicate it further. Let's fix it instead of complicating it further. And we're not going to fix it by allowing a murderous Nigerian army to continue killing our youth. No, that will not be how to fix it. That's the only perspective that, to me, seems not to be sinking down well with the youth. You have been provoked, you have been offended. It is clear you have been offended, but stay alive. It is very important. Please stay alive. Let us withdraw from the streets and continue the struggle otherwise. Justice will come if we work hard enough. It will come. I can tell you based on experience and age, justice will come. Thank you.
We thank you very much once again, Chief Martin Onovo, for being with us tonight. It's been a very, very wonderful experience. How we wish that you had won the 2015 presidential election. But I think it all goes to say with the structural system that Nigeria is operating, that even the youths today that are complaining now, we looked at 2015 election, for instance, the PDP and the APC. We are not the only party in existence. The National Conscience Party was there. There are other parties led by youths, even though you may not be an elder statesman, but you are still a youth, relatively. So the youth did not flock to your party then to see whether things will change. But that is the structural defects of the system, where people cannot be actually said to have been allowed to exercise their free choice in a free and fair election. So hopefully one day the nation will get to that point where people's vote will count and the people will get the leadership they actually deserve. So thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and we apologize that the program has overrun the 1 hour it was meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everyone. And it's been a wonderful time having all of you in attendance. Please stay safe and have a good evening.